There is nothing else. Scientology is it. It's going to save the world. You put your heart and soul into this. It's your eternity. She turns me in. She disconnects from me. I was so exhausted. I was texting my sister and I was telling her, come and say goodbye to your father. No answer. His wife was also a Scientologist. She was taking his kid away. He was devastated. She eventually disconnects from 2 of her kids. It's gross. You're in really bad shape. You actually could have a cardiac arrest right now. And it's around 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm still there trying to get my job done. It is a fear-based cult.
Hi, Gabrielle. How are you doing?
Hi, Alex.
Welcome.
I'm fine.
To
nervous.
my channel. Yeah, what an exciting moment, I think, for everyone and for you particularly.
Yeah, exciting, scary, terrifying, all that good stuff.
All that at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm really privileged to have you on my channel as the first person to interview you and share this exciting news about what you're about to be doing. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, and I'm really excited to see what happens with your channel and see it grow and hear all the stories come out from your time in Scientology.
Yeah, it's Alex, thank you so much also for doing this for me. It's I've been out for about 10 years now and just watched a lot of stuff, and I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to empower myself, I guess, and also get the story out. And I've also noticed that there's no Canadians on YouTube talking about this stuff. And I'm Canadian. I'm from Vancouver and born and raised Vancouver. That's a place in Canada. I don't know if everybody knows, but Ryan Reynolds is from Vancouver. Seth, who's that? What?
Rogen?
There's another Seth Rogen, Michael Bublé, of course. There's quite a few
and
stars.
You.
And me, of course. Yeah, okay. Anyways, that's not a big deal. So it was around 1988. I was about 22, and I went through a breakup, a relationship breakup. And I was working at a bank and just, being a normal wog. I don't know if anyways, I know people don't like that word, but that's how it is in Scientology.
Yeah.
It's they look down on people. That's the elitist attitude. So my brother-in-law had a friend who was a veteran Scientologist, and he was what's called an FSM. So it's a field staff member. That's somebody that he's not a staff member, but he's somebody that he's like this outside salesman for Scientology. And if I do a course or whatever, he gets money for it or commission.
Yeah, we used to use FSMs all the time in book selling, right? So it's a public Scientologist who is paying to do their courses and so on, but also want to help spread the word. So they might, recruit friends and family or go out and book sell and try and promote Scientology, but not in a contractual kind of staff member way. But
exactly.
Yeah, you're right. They'll get a commission on any sales made. So it kind of encourages them to want to go and do it financially. FSM.
It's an incentive, and quite frankly, in Vancouver, that's where most of the people come from. who get into Scientology is through a field staff member. So it's somebody who knows somebody. And in this case, it was my brother-in-law's bandmate. And he, I guess I'm not exactly sure how it all came about, but I had mentioned that, there was this breakup and I was kind of blindsided by it. And so he kind of, was a perfect opportunity for the spiel. And he told me about Scientology. Now, I hadn't heard of Scientology. So to me, it was just another, self-help betterment kind of course to take. And I was always kind of curious about stuff. For me, the 9-to-5 thing didn't feel like the end all. It's like I guess what I'm trying to say is there was more of a spiritual curiosity that I had. Sure. So we go, we talk about it and stuff, and he's a super nice guy. And so we decide to meet at the org. And I end up signing up, of course, for a Div 6 course. So it's just an introductory course, and it's called The Ups and Downs in Life. So that's where you learn about the social and antisocial personality, right? So I guess the whole idea of why I was put on the course was because of this relationship that I had, and I was blindsided. And this is the technology that, this will never happen to you again, because now you'll know what kind of people you associate with, blah, blah, blah. So then I went on to 2 other courses. I quite enjoyed it. We had a Div 6 course room at the time, and there was a really nice supervisor, totally relatable. He was kind of cute too. And it was fun, right? So I was working during the day, came in at night, and did the course. So I did a couple more courses, and then I got into a car accident.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, somebody from the org reached out and said, we have these assists, and they should help you, sort of help your body recuperate faster. I went, okay. So somebody got me this, put a program together for me, right? It's called an assist program. It was pleasant. I was getting attention, I was being spoken to by, a lot of the people there, and they were super nice. So one thing leads to another. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think just for those watching who maybe don't know assists, it's kind of Scientology do these when there's several different types of assist, but the idea is that it helps take your attention off of whatever is causing you the pain, right, or trauma or whatever. So there are locational assists, which is kind of like looking out and saying, look at this, and the idea is you're just taking your attention off things and not on the pain. And then there's a touch assist, which is a bit like Reiki. It's kind of touching you on the body in different points. And this is the idea to kind of help you recover in a almost like a spiritual way. It's not like an actual health cure to cure all of your pain, but they do believe it helps.
Well, it's kind of like, it's like a new age kind of healing stuff, right? Like a nervous system, the concept behind the nervous system is to open up all the nerves and get the blood flowing and stuff like that, which, it makes perfect sense. And
did it help? Did you find some relief from it?
I guess I did. I think I did. I actually really like nervous systems because I just found them very relaxing. It's like somebody sort of brushing their fingers very lightly over your back and stuff like that. And it's just relaxing. Yeah. So I do this program, and this very nice woman's doing it. So one thing leads to another, and I end up buying some services. So I buy what's called I think it was called a life repair package back then or something like that.
Sure.
So that consists of 12 and a half hours of professional auditing, the TRs and objectives, which is now called the survival rundown, I think,
Yep.
and the Purif. So I start getting into that. And it's funny because I flip back into when closer to the end of my time in Scientology, I was also a recruiter. So I was hiring people for staff, and you wanted to get people onto these services because they were prime for the picking.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
that's when people supposedly cognited. They were getting the benefits from the Purif. I mean, they didn't last, of course, but you know, they were becoming Scientologists. That's sort of like the whole grooming aspect, or sort of the beginning grooming stages.
Yeah, it's very common, and it's one of the tactics that Scientology uses, you know, to recruit people, because it is meant to be making the able more able. But
Yeah.
there's the common thread among new people joining Scientology is when you have some sort of trauma or upset, or you're at a point in your life where you're questioning things. And for some people, it might be a breakup, or like the breakup in a car accident, and you know, something's happening in maybe you've lost your job, something's happened in your life that's kind of knocked you, you know, to a side a little bit, and you're kind of trying to figure
Yeah.
out who you are, where you're going. And that is the perfect time for Scientology to come in, because they can present things as a solution. And it sounds like that's exactly what they
Exactly.
did. You were interested anyway in doing
Exactly.
these sort of life improvement courses that are kind of,
Yeah.
here's some tools you can try. Then you have this big major incident, and they go, great, well, you need to now spend lots of money on these major courses on, you know, on the bridge. So you get you started on the Purif, which is the first thing you do on the bridge. Then TR's objectives is the next thing, and
Yeah.
life repair is a huge auditing action as well. So that must have been a huge chunk of money. But you're in that state of mind when you're like, yeah, you know,
I need
you'll
to do
take it.
this. Well, and just sort of going back to the accident, right? It was, you know, drugs and alcohol were involved. It's like, that's very unethical.
Mm.
And I mean, you know, it's a stupid thing to do to begin with. So it's like, well, you know, let's sort of figure out why you did this, and sort of, you know, get on the straight and narrow kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and Scientology was right there with the tools that, you know, is going to help you sort of overcome those kind of things, right? So I start on the life repair. I think I actually did the life repair first,
Yeah.
because it was a life repair. It was like, okay, let's get her sort of life together, get the therapy or counseling that she needs. And so that was my very first taste of professional auditing. Normally, people will do like Dianetics or maybe some of the self-analysis stuff. So very light sort of auditing stuff. The life repair, or it's a little more intense. It's like the metered stuff and pulling withholds and overts. So it's kind of like, I wrote it down here. It was diving into the deepest, darkest corners of your mind and pulling out that information. And, you know, I mean, I'm 22, so I don't have a whole lot of life experience, but, you know, there's like things that you keep private, things that go on in your head that are just for you. But now it's like they're being like pulled out of you. It's like, well, let's talk about this, you know, I mean, some really personal stuff. So I'm getting recruited, and what's going on in the background though is my brother-in-law and my sister are also involved. And my sister ends up joining staff. And she was like a stay-at-home mom, so it wasn't a big deal. She joined in the daytime. So anyways, after a lot of recruiting, and I mean, the recruiting cycles are pretty intense, right? It's especially when, you know, you're becoming a Scientologist, and yeah, it's just intense.
How long were they trying to recruit you for before you joined the staff finally?
Oh, a number of months.
Okay.
A lot of recruit interviews, you would call them. And I mean, I didn't put up a whole lot of resistance. The person who was recruiting me, I have a long history with. Well, his first name is Peter. I won't get into the rest of it. But anyways,
Sure.
yeah, I'm not a real fan of his. He tried to declare me. And he finally did end up declaring me in the end, 20 some odd years later. But anyways, so this was enticing, right? And so I joined. I actually quit my day job. I even had like my coworkers actually had a going away party. I told them what I was doing. I'm going into Scientology. Like Scientology wasn't what it is today. Like you could say Scientology and they're like, oh, okay. It's an organization. Oh, okay. One thing leads to another, and I'm in Los Angeles. I'm on a flight and I'm in Los Angeles, and I've completed my staff status 1. I haven't even completed staff status.
So hold on. So you were recruited at Vancouver org, and you started doing your staff statuses, which is your staff training effectively. So you were doing your staff status 1 at Vancouver because you were meant to be working there, and they sent you to LA.
The evolution was happening. You got to get your people down there. So I guess David Miscavige had started. So there was the KTL LOC evolution. Okay, so that's when the KTL and LOC courses were introduced. But
key to life,
key to life and life orientation course.
Yeah.
It was in that training that I actually met Dave Pettit, who some people have talked about. He's the I think CO for CC and has been for a very long time. And he had a really hard time remembering my name. He was on the same training that I was at the time. This was, I think he may have been the CO for CC or just started or something like that. But he couldn't remember my name. I'd sit beside him in some of the courses and stuff like that. And he ended up word clearing my name. Yeah, I thought,
how can you word clear a name?
I don't know. It was just, it's like that's how Scientology people think. It's like,
what is
if I'm
the
not
definition
getting
of Gabrielle?
I have no idea. It was just like I just sat there going, "You're like really weird." I'm just sitting there, listening. This is interesting, but yeah, you're kind of strange. Anyways, so there was 17 courses that I was supposed to do, even like before after the KTL LOC. So I probably would have been there until I was old and gray.
When you're a staff member, your courses and training and stuff are paid for. That's the exchange. You get free auditing and free courses in return for your time volunteering for the church. Okay.
But in actuality, the org was being billed for all of this. And then there's another part that my org was supposed to be paying, was the food and birthing. And they weren't paying that. And there was a few times where somebody from the finance division of ITO would say, Vancouver hasn't paid for their trainees for their food. They're on beans and rice.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so there was a few times I ate beans and rice.
And you're still new to this at this point. Like you're Wow.
Oh, Alex, there was, you know what? It happened a few times. And then I was like, I'm so done with this, because I was there with another guy, actually 2 guys. One of them arrived a little later to do the training lineup. And these guys, we were losing weight. Like, I mean, I was never that big at the time to begin with, but we're losing weight. Like, my other mate, he was his pants were like falling off of him, and I'm like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. So I was, I'm not a pushover, so I was like, fuck this. And I went and I took food. I took food for all three of us. I'm like, this is not happening anymore. So I actually, quote, stole food. So this, if I had any sort of auditing, this would come up as an overt.
I mean, good for you. Like, this is a great and absolutely the thing that any normal human being would do. But I can only imagine what Scientology thought of that, because that is not okay in Scientology terms.
Yeah. No,
wow.
No, it was bad. I was a bit of a rebel when I was there too, right? I didn't want to do any sort of black PR for Scientology. And that was, you talk to your family and friends or you're writing them letters and you mention nothing about that.
Yeah, because you don't, because when you're in that mindset, even if you're having a really horrible experience, even within Scientology, you would kind of dress it up and make it seem nicer than it is. But for people who aren't in Scientology, you still believe that Scientology is helping people and this is what you're doing and all of this. And even though you're having a bad experience, you don't want to create a PR problem. You don't want other people to think, maybe Scientology is not great. So you lie and you tell them it's all great. I'm having a wonderful time. And actually,
Alex, you're not lying. You're telling an acceptable truth.
Acceptable truth. That's the term Scientology use, is an acceptable
it's
truth.
a very popular term. That's how you get away with lying in Scientology. It's an acceptable truth. It's all good,
Yeah.
So, but I come back and what happens is I get posted in Div 6.
Okay. A division I know very well. Division 6, for those of you who don't know, is the public-facing division of Scientology. It's the part of Scientology that is responsible for getting new people in. So there's 3 parts. There's Div 6A, B, and C. And the idea is there's like book sales, recruitment. There's what's called the Div 6 courses, which are the life improvement courses and the very introductory level services that you do, that you, Gabriel, started on. So you're in this, what was your post in Div 6?
I was in 6A. 6A, head of 6A, personal control sec, was it?
PCS, yeah. Public control secretary, public contact secretary. PCS, public contact secretary. PCS. Okay. So you would have been, so when I was director of public book sales, my direct senior was the PCS, the public contact secretary. So if we were in the same org, you would have been my senior at this point. Okay. All right. And how was that? What was that like?
Ooh, I hated it. I hated it. But I was good at it.
What was the post they originally offered you?
The HAS. So over the whole personnel recruitment and justice and ethics area. And then what was happening in the meantime in my personal life, I had come back. My finances were a mess. I had my family were actually making my loan payment, because remember I told you I went and I bought the life repair package, and that was on loan, and I think I had a car loan, and so I come back and I don't have a job, and my credit cards are maxed because my credit card was maxed. So this also caused a lot of issues in the org because I just kept bitching about it, right? I became a thorn in their side. So, and then I blew a couple of times too. It's like, no, I'm done, because I'm still in Div 6 and I hate it.
And a blow is an unauthorized departure. That's when you leave and you haven't finished the staff contract, you haven't told them, whatever the circumstances are, you just leave without them giving you permission or authorization to do so. That's what happens when you have just had enough, right? It's just like walking out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was kicking up a storm, and at the time, The executive director for the day org was this guy who I had always had a conflict with, right?
Right.
So one thing led to another, and I was kicking up a storm, and he was like, well, we're gonna declare you if you don't come in. And I'm like, fine, go ahead and declare me. It's like, really? You need me more than I need you, kind of thing. It was like I at least knew that much, right? And I was like,
How did that go down?
It didn't. But here's the thing. I just started reading policy, right? And it's like there's policy for everything. Any situation you have, there's a policy or to somehow to justify what you're doing. So for me, it was like I needed to transfer to the foundation org. That was my solution. And you can't just do that. You can't just go, oh, I just want to go on to the other org, right?
And for those of you watching, so Scientology churches are split into two sets of staff. They're run as two completely different organizations, but it's within the same building. So you have the day staff and the foundation staff. So
Yeah.
when you think of day staff, that's Monday to Friday, 9 till 6, and the foundation is the evenings and the weekends. So any church of Scientology will be open from like 9 in the morning until 10 at night, and it's staffed by two different groups of staff, and they are run as two completely separate organizations, separate budget, separate money, separate everything.
Yeah.
And when you see, just a little side tangent, when you see Scientology's number of total churches worldwide, that is double what it actually is, because they count day and foundation as two separate churches. So half it, and you've got a more realistic number, because London
Exactly.
Day and London Foundation are two different things. So you basically were saying it's not working for me being on the day staff Monday to Friday 9 to 6 because I'm not earning enough money to live, and I need to go and get a job so that I can continue doing my job in Scientology. So you requested, can I just work evenings and weekends instead? And they said no.
Well, it wasn't negotiable. You can't do that. And of course you can't. There is policy, and if you get yourself a ComEv, you can get transferred, but that's the only way to do it. So I managed to get a ComEv, but not from my org. I actually went all the way up to the Continental, up to upper, or to management, to the CLO.
And you were the one. So a ComEv is like one of those things in Scientology that you don't really want. It's never really a positive experience for anybody.
No.
If you're declared a suppressive person or anything like that, that happens, and you're supposed to get a ComEv. And a ComEv stands for Committee of Evidence. It's meant to be kind of like a jury, not a jury trial, but like a legal trial almost, of like, let's look at the facts of the situation, let's investigate and decide what the right and wrong thing is to do, kind of like a court of law. But in reality, more often than not, ends up being a really negative thing, because they found you guilty of whatever crime it is before you've even walked into the room. So this is wild that you were requesting one of these, because
I was requesting one.
That's the way to do. Wow.
Yeah.
And how did that go down?
The ComEv is supposed to be strictly a fact-finding body, right? Yeah. You're supposed to get people together that are your peers, and they're supposed to look at all the evidence, which would be any reports and your stats and stuff like that. And you have what's called a bill of particulars. So the person in the ethics officer or whatever is supposed to, write out what the crimes are or whatever, right? So in a lot of orgs that aren't that don't have a lot of staff, there's a shortage. You can't do this kind of stuff. It's a very labor intensive process, right? Somebody has to sit down, go through all your ethics files, do what's called an ethics summary. Anyways, and I knew it wasn't going to happen. So that's why I was like, fuck you guys. I'm going up above your head. And it worked. It actually worked. I had a ComEv over the phone with
Wow.
the guys from CLO. I mean, yeah, not a lot of people have had that.
Wow.
And they were super cool. And I thought they're all Sea Org members, right? So they don't want to lose a staff member. They were the Day Org people were not very pleased with this, but it's like, whatever. This is my own survival, right? And you get to keep a staff member. So I end up as the staff section officer in the qualifications division, and I'm looking after the staff, which is great. So now I'm in the background. I don't have to face public, and I can do my thing, and I enjoyed it. And then a mission comes in from RTC, from the Religious Technology Center. They send in a mission of 2 real badass RTC women come to Vancouver, and it's what's called an ethics mission. So they're there to clean up the riffraff. They're there to get standard tech in, standard admin. And the first thing that happens is they boot the executive director off of staff from the foundation. They find that he's a criminal, yada, 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 right? So they had to have somebody in the position that was going to, that they were able to run, because you don't run your own organization as an executive director. You're micromanaged through the Continental Liaison Office, and they're controlled by upper management, and that's kind of how it goes. The orders come down, and it's like, this is what you do. You don't, yeah, that's just the way it is. So so I end up being the executive director, and I'm like, this is insane. And I think I get my sister on staff. There's hardly any staff, and there's nobody in treasury. It's like
how many staff were there at this point, including you on the foundation?
Me, I'm gonna say maybe about 10.
10 total staff. Wow. Okay.
You're trying to run this very large organization. You're trying to keep the lights on, and it's like each Class 5 org is responsible for their own stuff, So anyway, somehow I managed to keep the lights on, and there was another guy there with me. He was what's called the senior CS, so the senior case supervisor. He was a Class 8, which is not a common rank or level of case supervisor that a lot of the orgs have. So he was flag trained. He was a senior Scientologist. Anyways, and he would help me. He would basically tag with me on sales cycles, reg cycles, right?
Right.
So we did a lot of that.
And just so people are aware, a CSK supervisor, that's the person that looks after everyone's auditing files and is meant to kind of advise and direct on how someone's case needs to be run. So they'll tell the auditors what processes to run and all this sort of stuff. Like they're the one managing your progress as a paying public. Hilarious that he was involved in reg cycles, because his job isn't to sell stuff. His job is to make sure auditing is being done correctly.
It was so messed up.
Yeah,
you're scrambling all the time. You're in a state of electrification all the time. Every day you come in and you don't know what's going to hit you, and then it came time for the golden age of tech, and we get word that this evolution is coming, and you need to send down people for training.
And you're like, what people?
Somebody raise their hand and go. But anyway, so we did manage. We actually sort of you cannibalize, is what we used to call it. You cannibalize your staff, and you sacrifice. And we found 2 guys that went down. Fortunately, the training wasn't that long. So they were back within about a year-ish, I think. So then the golden age of tech comes out. And that is another point in Scientology where I think we lost quite a few older Scientologists. Just because of the nature of the program, it really did invalidate. This is, basically what people said. It invalidated what they knew because everything was revamped. They were all told that they don't know how to audit. Back to the drawing board for everyone.
The excuse that Dave Miscavige gave when he did this was that essentially he did a big project and looked into everything and realized that loads of L. Ron Hubbard policies had been misinterpreted or things had been misapplied and auditing hadn't been done correctly. And so therefore he did this big program to retrain everybody and get everyone on track and doing Scientology as per L. Ron Hubbard, how it's meant to be.
Yes.
And so then from now, golden age of tech, we can now deliver real Scientology. But what that does mean is all of these people who had spent their lives in Scientology already and millions of dollars and they're, all of this were told, well, actually, you've got to go back and do it again because it wasn't done right. And that understandably must have caused a load of people to leave because people who had got to the top of the bridge who were OT5, OT7, OT8, like they'd spent loads of money, loads of time invested in it, and they were suddenly told, look, I know you've been told for the last 10 years that you're OT5, but actually we found out that you didn't do the purif right. So you have to go right back to the beginning and get yourself back up to where you were. And this is all at your expense as well. This isn't...
Oh, yes, of course.
Scientology never said, we're sorry, we messed up. We're going to redo it, but we'll give you, we'll pay for it. No. We did it wrong. Everything we told you was incorrect. We thought it was correct, but it's not. And you have to do it all over again. So a bunch of people left.
Yeah. People who felt very, I don't know, they were insulted.
Yeah.
Right. And rightly so. Locally, a lot of people went, we're out of here.
Yeah.
But they did it very quietly, right? It's like, so now what you're supposed to do per the golden age of tech programs is you're supposed to get all these people in and they're supposed to redo everything. So it's a good way to make money. So even somebody that has done one of the first major courses, which is the student hat, they would do, well, they get a little bit of a break because they do the study certainty course. They didn't have to do everything. But I think they actually had to get tested. And if they got a certain percentage, then they could do the study certainty course, which was supposed to fill in the gaps from this bad student hat that they had, just the other day when it was, and then they had all the auditor training stuff to redo. So, and on top of that, for the orgs, they had to get 20 auditors in training. So all of this stuff had to run simultaneously. So when you have like 10 staff and a lot of them, let's take away half of them because they're technical. They're the guys that are supervising and auditing and being a word clearer. So you have 5 guys roughly to try and do all this, right? Well, it didn't happen. It was such I have a lot of words for it, but it was a real cluster, you know what?
Yeah.
So, but you're still getting the pressure on you, right? You're getting telexes, you're getting phone calls. Why aren't you doing this? You need to send people down, and it's really intense, right? So anyways, in the meantime, I didn't know this was happening, but the senior CS that I had, he's the class 8, he was like a recent class 8, right? So he did all of his training, which is a lot of years of training. He comes back, gets himself going, and now he's told he has to go back down to Flag
and redo it
and he
all.
has to redo this. So he was not on board at all. And one thing led to another, and he was declared. So he was, this is the extremes that Scientology will go to. There was 2 other staff members that escorted him on a plane from Vancouver to Toronto.
Because they thought he was going to escape.
Yeah. Well, so I found out after I got out in 2014 that he wrote this massive knowledge report on David Miscavige and the golden age of tech.
A lot of people did this. You know, this is one of the very common stories. A lot of people I've spoken to that left around this time or started running into issues. You know, when David Miscavige did this thing, like, it annoyed a lot of people, and people were still Scientologists. They believed in it and they thought he was messing stuff up. So a lot of people wrote knowledge reports and wrote things using Scientology policy, basically saying David Miscavige has done something wrong here. He's not applying Scientology, and trying to use Scientology to resolve the issue of him changing everything.
So that helped. So it was kind of like me and my sister at the helm for a little while. And then I get called back up to the CLO. This time, though, they had somebody to take over my position, my sister.
Why did they call you back up to the CLO? Why did they send you? Was there a reason, or did they just say you've got to come to Toronto?
Because they needed to stabilize me. So they wanted me to go through a bunch of courses, yada, 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 stay there, train, at least, do a full hat, like my entire, I don't know how you explain the full hat. It's like, do the study of your job. So I would just do the executive director training and get some auditing, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, but they don't tell you this until you get there.
Right.
Right. And in the meantime, you're getting, and every time you start one of these kind of programs or cycles, it always starts with ethics. Always. Yeah. So, you're left there. Your welcome is a hunk of, what is it? Legal paper, the ethics book. Go write your OWs.
And your OWs are your overts and withholds. That's your confessionals, your transgressions. What have you done wrong against the church?
Yeah. And I did a lot of OWs because I also did previously the life orientation course where you do a lot of that. So, I wasn't, it wasn't a surprise, but again, it's a control thing, right? And then what happens is they sit down with you and they go over your OWs. Like, isn't that nice? It's like you're confessing, you're pouring your heart out. You're trying to you're trying to get with the program and come clean. And then there's somebody that sits there and they read your OWs. It's just it invades your personal space so much, right? Especially it's usually a guy, and you're a girl, and it's just like, oh fuck, just leave me alone, right? So I wasn't complying. I was just not having a good time, and they were trying to force me to stay there. And I went along with some of the ethics program and stuff like that, but and there's a lot of downtime because there's, again, at the CLO in Toronto, this is not the States, this is Canada. There are not a lot of people there, right? I think maybe 15-ish people.
In the whole of CLO.
In the whole of CLO.
And CLO is the Continental Liaison Office. That's
Yeah.
the org above the Class V org. So in every country, they're called continents. You have like East US, West US, you have UK, you have Europe and Australia, Canada. So this is like the org that's meant to run all of the city level orgs. So this is like management Sea Org, the people that signed their billion-year contract that did. So this is a higher up org that's meant to be in charge of all the city level ones. And you're saying there are 15 people in the entirety of this organization meant to be in charge of the whole of Canada. All of Scientology in Canada is meant to be run by this.
And I think I'm being generous with 15, because when I was there, they actually had somebody from the Toronto org helping me, or basically running me on my ethics program. So it's Canada is very Mickey Mouse. Just, it's pretty sad. It's actually quite pathetic when you hear about how the US runs their orgs and stuff like that. So, I mean, to this day, Vancouver is not an ideal org. Neither is Toronto. I think there's one, is it Quebec? I think Quebec, it's one ideal org. Oh no, Cambridge.
Right.
So there's two.
Okay.
And I mean, it's been going on for over 20 years. So, but that's a whole other thing. So I get to a point where I'm done. I've had enough. I want to go home. I'm now living with Chuck, and we have a life together, and I have bills that I need to pay, yada, 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 because, I'm working. And so I try to blow. I get my bags packed, and stupidly, I went to the org with my luggage and I said, I'm going to be leaving now. I'm going home.
That right there is your mistake, Gabrielle. You can't tell them you're going to leave.
I know. What was I thinking, right? I mean, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to do the right thing.
You're pissed off. You don't want to blow. You don't want to leave in an unauthorized fashion and get told off. So you're annoyed, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do, but you still want to do it in the right way. And I completely get it. You want to go and tell them you're unhappy, you're gonna leave, you're gonna go home, because you want them to know, so that you're not just abandoning everything. You're trying to do the right thing here, but I'm guessing that's not how they saw it, right?
No, they convinced me to stay. Just stay a couple more days. Okay, well, no, then it was stay a couple more days, then try and get through the PTSSP course. Okay, that PTSSP course was pushed heavily for anybody who was having any sort of issue, because it was always PTSness, right?
Mm-hmm. Which means you're connected to a suppressive person, someone who is an anti-Scientology, someone that's an enemy of the church. And ultimately, that's the root cause of many people's problems in Scientology, as per Scientology, is that you are related or somehow connected to an enemy of the church, and that's causing all of your problems and why you're having upsets. And so what you got to do is find out who that person is and then disconnect from them, because then you'll be able to, they're getting in the way of your progression in Scientology.
I mean, it could even be, and in my case, it was, my father was antagonistic. My father he thought Scientology was a whole pile of crap. He had a history of being antagonistic, and he called it, propaganda. And he never called it a cult, but he knew enough to know that it was bad news, and that, all they wanted was your money. So, and I mean, we got into arguments about it a lot. So that was one of the reasons why they kept pushing the PTSSP course on me, right? Anyway, so this is the deal. So they're bargaining with me now. So just do the PTSSP course and then go home. And I agree. So I go back. I'm actually not staying in the regular berthing, because it's really gross. There's cockroaches. It's just disgusting. The way the Sea Org lived in Canada was just atrocious, because they don't have time to clean. They're not in like they're in houses, right? It's somebody's house. It's probably another Scientologist, and they have all their little rooms, and they don't clean because there's no time. It was just really, really gross. So I ended up staying with a staff member, and I'm paying out of my own pocket to stay with her. So I've decided I'm going home, and I called my husband, or he was my fiance at the time, and I said, that's it, I'm coming home, I'm blowing. And we made arrangements. It was like 4 a.m. It was 4 a.m. and I had a taxi pick me up and take me to the Pearson Airport. That was the only way I could get out. This time I didn't tell anybody except for my husband.
You didn't at 4 a.m. think you'd call up your senior and go, just let you guys know, I'm leaving again. Yeah, good for you. You did the right thing.
Yeah, right. But you know what? It was so nerve-wracking. I was just like, I was so mad. I was so done. And you think because I was so mad, I would just like leave Scientology altogether? No. There's still, another 10 years that I stayed in.
There's still hope, because you're thinking, even though you've had all these horrible experiences and it's not going right, there's still part of you that thinks, it's because it's not being done right, or something's not quite, you always find a reason in your mind, because in your mind you think Scientology is the answer, and Scientology is correct and right and makes people happier and live better lives and so on. So when it's not going right, you kind of find reasons in and this is a cognitive dissonance. You're telling yourself that Scientology makes everything better, and the reality is it's not. But you have faith, you have a hope that it's not going right because it's not being done correctly, or because this has happened, or someone's messed up. It's not Scientology that's the problem. Right. It's that someone has done something wrong, or it's not been applied correctly. So you're annoyed and you leave, but you still are a Scientologist. You still want it to work, right?
Yeah. Like leaving Scientology never enters your mind. Leaving staff, it's like, that was just, for me, that was actually what I really wanted to do, is like, I just want to sort of end this whole staff thing, get my life together, because, there's a lot of people who are Scientologists in Vancouver, and they're very successful, but they're not on staff. The staff members don't tend to be successful. They struggle. That's basically what was happening back then. So I just went about my business, and I got a daytime job, and I just got on with my life. We got married, we bought a condo, so I just I went and I was doing an accounting program, and then 9/11 happened.
I was going to say, for context, when would this have been? And you just clarified that 2001 then, right? Okay.
Yeah. So 9/11 happened, and that was when the wake up call came out. So that's another sort of historic time in Scientology's history. And the wake up call was more or less, it was a call to arms for all Scientologists. And it was a major thing. I remember
this is essentially a letter David Miscavige wrote to all Scientologists, essentially, like you say, a call to arms, saying that, look, this tragedy is a sign, effectively, of how messed up the world is, and how this is the beginning of, like, a lot of horrible stuff that's going to happen, and this is why we need to get Scientology in on, like, an ethics in on the planet.
It was like, I have to do something, right? I can't sit back and just let this go. It was serious, and it was quite the plea as well to, so I didn't go back on staff, though. I went, but my participation, which was nil, with the org, up until that point, I ended up going on to what's called the OT committee. So it's just another OT committee. It's a committee that organizes stuff, right?
I was going to say, where are you on the bridge at this point? Right.
Nowhere.
So how would you be on the OT committee? Because I thought that was just meant
I know.
for
Good question.
OTs, right? Because the idea of the OT committee is that people who are OTs, who are public members of the Scientology or whatever, like they kind of not oversee, but like they get together as OTs, people at the top of the Scientology bridge, and you know, help encourage programs like getting FSMs, getting people to, you know, go out and recruit people and sell books and help, basically like a group of people trying to promote their org and get together as experienced Scientologists and do what they can to help the org grow, right?
Right. It's
Not
supposed to
necessarily
be
staff
OTs.
members, but yeah, it's meant to be OTs. So how on earth did you end up on the OT committee if you weren't OT?
So you have to understand, it's desperation. There are very few people to do stuff in Vancouver. So and I mean, the majority of the people on the committee were OTs, but you know, if they can get extra help to do stuff, I was actually the stats I see. So I helped with all that. They had to report stats, so I would keep track of stats and report them.
So it's not even it's not even like you had the OT committee and you were there helping out, saying, "I'm not OT, but what can I do?" No, you were actually given a job title within the OT committee.
Yeah.
You were fully a part of the OT committee, but you weren't OT.
Not even
golden.
close.
That is golden.
Not even this much. So yeah, on the OT committee. So now I'm back in the org and I'm around and people see me, you know, and staff see me. And that same guy, the executive director who was on day, is now on foundation. And he's being a little bit nicer to me now. Anyway, so I'm getting regged for services, and I'm also getting recruited.
Reg means just they're trying to sell you stuff, right? They're
Yeah.
trying to get you to buy auditing and courses and stuff, and obviously recruited. They want to get you back on staff.
Yeah. And one of the main reasons why I got back on staff, because there was, of course, the golden age of tech happened, and there is another senior case supervisor who is down at Flag, who is training to Class 8, and she's supposed to be the bomb. I had heard, and I think she had told me at one point too, that she was sec checking int staff at Flag. So who knows who she sec checked.
Well, yeah. So just so that you guys are aware that don't know, sec checking is security checking. That's, you know, on the e-meter. You can look it up. There's all these horrible questions they ask you and trying to get to the root cause of what you've done wrong and give us all of your information. And that's what you go through a sec check when you're in really serious ethics trouble, basically, right? And if they're trying to find out what you've done wrong, and int staff are the people who run Scientology from California, right? The international base. So you're talking Mike Rinder, Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder. You know, these are all int people. They're at the highest levels of Scientology. So if you are doing sec checks on those people, that's some really serious stuff that's happening, right?
Yeah.
And that means you are a very trusted, high-ranking Scientologist, because you
wouldn't be in
that position, and you're very good, because you
Yes.
wouldn't be in that position if you were kind of okay, or you did an okay job, or you were low down. Like, so this person obviously is very well trusted and very good at what they're doing.
Yeah, she apparently had a name at Flag, and she was the bomb, basically. So she's in training and she's coming back to the org to Vancouver. She's going to be the senior case supervisor, and she's bringing standard Scientology back. And that is exactly what I wanted, because my last go around on staff was terrible because it was so not standard. Around that time is around 2013, getting close to the release of it. I get really sick, and I have what's called hyperthyroid. It's when your thyroid is creating too many hormones of one particular hormone, and it's actually what turned out to be an autoimmune disease called Graves' disease. So the symptoms were, this is so nuts, Alex. I dropped 20 pounds in less than a month, right? I am like so skinny, and I'm shaking like this, and I'm on my objectives. Nobody notices. I do roll call, right? And I'm holding my clipboard, and my hand is shaking like this. Like you can see, nobody notices. So
or if they do notice, they in their head put it down to, well, something's stimulating, or if you're in the course room doing your objectives, well, that's a sign that what you're doing is working, because you're working through your reactive mind is triggering this reaction. So carry on with it. You got to keep doing it. Like,
right.
they probably did notice, but they in their head thought,
right,
there's a
the
reason
way out
behind
is
it.
the way through, right, Alex? The way out is the way
Exactly.
through.
Oh
Keep
God,
going.
I haven't heard that in a while. The way out is the way
Yeah, what
through.
turns it on will turn it off. So so I get really sick, and then
that's just brought back so many
I'm sorry.
memory. No,
I
it's
didn't
not.
mean to
It's fine.
trigger you.
No, it's not. It's fine. It's not like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
not
I
bad.
know.
It's just brought back suddenly, like, the number of times that was said to me, and the number of times I said it to other people, and the number of
Yeah,
times I said it to myself. Right? That's such a
it's
the
such a
way out
bullshit
is the
lie.
way through. Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. It's that persistence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that I don't know. I don't know what that is, but it's like, oh, okay, the way out is the way through. Okay, so that's the reason for it. Keep going,
Yeah.
right? And
Because
that's what it was.
I remember, like, I remember it, because you're going through these really emotional things and these horrible times, and you're kind of like, this is horrible, but you tell yourself that because, like, you're not dealing with, like, nothing here. You're dealing with, like, your spiritual freedom, your
Mhm.
spiritual immortality and eternal, like, this is important, hard stuff. And that's why it's hard. That's why you're feeling so crap, and why you're, because it's not an easy thing.
Right.
Right? Going up the bridge and doing all this, it's not an easy thing. So it's gonna be hard. And I just remember telling myself that every time there was, like, a real issue, or I was upset, or I was being kicked out, like, I just remember saying to myself, the way out is the way through, that I'm upset and this is horrible, and being locked in a room and all this stuff. Like, you, that is the excuse you give yourself.
And I'm sitting there, and I guess it's a Sunday, and it's around 1:00 in the morning, and I'm still there trying to get my job done. And I couldn't stand anymore. I sat down, and I was just like, I was so exhausted. The disease is, it really takes a toll on your body. It breaks down your muscle mass. You lose a bunch of weight. You can't process nutrition, because the as fast as you're eating it, it comes out of you just as fast. It's like, it's really bad. I was actually to the point where it's called thyroid storm, and I could have gone into cardiac arrest. is basically what the doctor told me. It was after a couple of weeks, I went to the doctor, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I mean, although I did do some Googling and I kind of had a hunch. And she looks at me, she puts a piece of, like, I have to hold out my hands like this, right? She puts a piece of paper across it, and the paper was like flapping like this. My nerves were just so shot. She says, you have hyperthyroid. And she said, you're in really bad shape. You actually could have a cardiac arrest right now. And, it's just like, oh yeah, well, okay, doctors, right? Because anyways, the whole doctor thing is another aspect of the crazy Scientology mindset. But, and it's, anyway, so she says, you need to go home and you need to be on medication. Medication?
You won't listen to what the doctor says because you're thinking, well, Scientology is the cure. Like, I just need to audit it out. I need to stop being re-stimulated, and then the problem will go away.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's what do doctors know, right? Because that's that elitist attitude that Scientologists have towards other professions. Oh, they don't know nothing. I know because I have all the LRH tech and all the answers. So anyways, it was basically the beginning of the end for me. I was trying my damnedest. Is he having an affair? And then it clicked. It was like, yeah, he's gone. He's out of the church. And I was telling her, come and say goodbye to your father. No answer. In my head, I said, I am never stepping into a Church of Scientology ever again.